You've probably heard it before. Kids need one primary parent, or it's better for kids to not have to live out of a suitcase, to not have two houses. Many people argue that after divorce or separation, children are better off with one parent and one home. The consistency comes from one single authority. Others say switching homes is disruptive or that kids will be confused if their time is spent evenly. Here's what decades of psychological research show. Children form separate, distinct attachments with each parent, and those bonds are not interchangeable. When a child loses meaningful access to one parent, their nervous system reacts as if they are losing that parent. They grieve. It creates stress, anxiety, and long-term emotional consequences. Shared parenting, including true 50-50 custody, is not just fairness between adults in a courtroom. It's a scientifically backed way to protect children's emotional and psychological health. Hi, I'm Maddie, and welcome to the Anti-Alienation Project. Here I talk about all things related to family, child psychological abuse that I went through for 20 years, and sometimes social and political issues. I'm actually surprised I haven't made a full-length video on this topic yet, but I was on Facebook the other night when I saw a post by one of my friends, Lauren, who goes by the Dadvocate, like advocate with a D. She's great, and this post that she did sparked a lot of conversation, and it got me thinking, and I want to show you this post to start the video. So she said, as you can see here, I get very annoyed at the anti-shared custody argument that kids can't handle two different rule sets. More in the comments. And then in the pinned part, she says, do you have the exact same structure as the school you send your child to? Do you have the exact same structure as your parents or in-laws who watch your child? Do you expect the exact same structure throughout the various other adults, communities, and organizations or clubs your child joins? No. Different disciplines, different rules, and different expectations are incredibly normal and digestible for kids. They know grandma's house is different than mom's house. And this got me thinking about shared parenting and about a lot of issues related to that. Now, the comment section of her post was actually really interesting too. So let's take a look at that real quick. Hopefully you guys can see this. The first person commented, can we add to that 50-50 custody is traumatic for kids? Edited to add, I guess this is getting misconstrued. A lot of anti-shared custody advocates say that they don't support 50-50 because it's traumatic for kids. So let me mention that for a second. I think that equal shared custody, 50-50 custody, with the presumption that there are two fit and healthy, good enough parents, no abuse or neglect involved, is natural. It's almost like the natural outcome. It's instinctual to give a child equal time with both parents. Now, people in the comments, they kind of got me laughing. Somebody said, what's the other option? One parent, 24 hours a day? No going to aunts? For that matter, are the rules always the same with mom? Or does she sometimes get pizza and other times saying we're eating healthy? I have weeks of no screens and weeks we have too much screen time. They figure it out. I think their point is that children are adaptable. Children need to be flexible. It's something we need to teach our kids. Somebody else says, I think it's best if you can agree on expectations for both homes and help your kids respect both homes and rules. That being said, my life does not work that way with our arrangement, even though we did try. Co-parenting sometimes is just parallel and hanging on for dear life. And last but not least, one more comment section. Trent says, I grew up with divorced parents, different sets of rules, moving houses a couple times per week, etc. It was never a difficulty. The hardest parts for me were remembering which house I left, what stuff at, and times when my parents disagreed and got petty about it. Given all the challenges I had, I would pick it again 100 times out of 100 over not seeing one of my parents regularly. Thank you, Trent. Amen. And then, yeah, so most people in the comments were definitely proponents of equal shared parenting. By the way, let me know in the comments or in the live chat your perspective right now before the video starts. Do you agree or disagree with the presumption of equal shared parenting or 50-50 custody upon a separation or divorce? Why or why not? I'm really curious to hear your opinion and to see if it changes by the end of this video. So, a little about me. Now, as a child of divorce myself, it is difficult for me to understand the argument against shared parenting. As long as parents, like I said, are fit enough and not neglectful or abusive. In fact, during my own parents' divorce 20 plus years ago, my mom actually went on a campaign to destroy my relationship with my dad. She manipulated me into believing terrible lies and false allegations, even getting the cops and the police involved. She destroyed our loving relationship on purpose, which naturally caused me 2 decades of pain and abuse and trauma. So, I mean, naturally, I'm a big advocate of equal shared parenting, and that's the point of view that I'm coming from today. But I am curious to hear from you whether your position is the same at the beginning of the video as it is at the end of the video. Sorry, struggling to talk right now. So I'm going to start with my points in favor of shared parenting, and then I'm going to address common arguments I hear against shared parenting and respond to those. I will be pulling up some research and screenshots from research studies I found. This video might be a little bit different than my typical ones. It's more of a deep dive, but I think this conversation is super important, especially because the divorce rate remains very high. So, my number one point for why equal shared parenting is best for children is simple. Children need secure attachments to both parents. From an attachment standpoint and a developmental psychology standpoint, children form separate and non-interchangeable attachment bonds with each parent. Losing meaningful access to one parent is a developmental injury. It causes grief, pain, loss. And now we're going to look at a study from 2024. So I found a longitudinal study from 2024 examining attachments to both mother and father figures. And the study found that children with stable, secure attachment to both parents over time showed better developmental outcomes and fewer behavioral problems than children who had a secure attachment to only one parent. And this to me is pretty intuitive. I don't know about you guys. I think it's pretty intuitive, but let's take a look at this study. So the study is related to early childhood attachment, and we're going to read the abstract. So this study examines the stability of child attachment to mothers and fathers separately and to both parents as a network between the infancy and preschool periods using a sample of 143 biparental families and their children. Now, it goes on to say, first, results show no stability in attachment to mothers, to fathers, or to both parents as a network. Second, parents' mental health, life satisfaction, marital satisfaction, and child externalizing behavior are associated with attachment stability. This is the important part that I highlighted. Taken together, group comparisons reveal that children with a stable, secure attachment to both parents as a network have parents with higher levels of well-being and exhibit less problem behaviors than children with either one stable, secure attachment to one parent and an unstable attachment to the other parent, or two who never had a stable, secure attachment to either parent. To me, this is just highlighting how important it is for children to remain solid in those secure attachments with both parents individually. By the way, I will respond to your comments and questions in the live chat at the end of the video. Thank you for being here. Please help me out by liking the video. If you think this content is important, it'll help tell YouTube to put it in the algorithm. Now, there is another part of this study that I wanted to share, which is this. It also talks about parental mental health symptoms. It says the first results indicated that attachment stability to mothers was not related to mothers' self-report of mental health, nor was attachment stability to fathers related to their self-reports of mental health. Studies found mixed results on whether attachment stability to mothers or fathers is significantly associated with self-reports of mental health. But if we go down to around where the highlighted portion is, the study says that in addition, our results showed that attachment stability to mothers was not related to fathers' reports of mental health. However, children who showed a stable, secure attachment to fathers had mothers who reported lower levels of distress than mothers of children who became insecure on the depression and hostility scales with fathers at preschool age. Perhaps, they say, the father-child relationship is more sensitive to maternal distress than the mother-child relationship is to paternal distress. I found this interesting because a lot of the times when we talk about a child being withheld from their parent, or a parent who's loving and fit and healthy and able to be an active parent being cut out of a child's life unjustifiably, we hear a lot from dads. And it happens to both moms and dads. Absolutely. I've always said anyone with a pulse can alienate. In other words, manipulate their child to reject their other parent, which is what my mom did to me for 20 years. But I would be lying if I said that I hear from more moms than dads. I do hear from more dads when it comes to this topic. So I thought that was a little, my lights went off. I thought that was a neat, let me try to fix them. They are a real professional show over here, guys. I thought that was a neat point to include. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the attachment and the need for secure attachments to both children. So, like I just showed in that 2024 study, and that children needed to have at least one secure attachment, but it's better to have two, obviously. And this is also backed up from research from a 2019 study that showed that repeated separation and losses of attachment figures are linked to signs of disrupted emotional regulation and attachment behaviors. Now, this is kind of upsetting, actually really upsetting, not kind of, really upsetting. The idea that you can swap an attachment for another attachment is absurd. Kids do not form one single attachment that can be swapped between adults. They have an attachment with their mom, hopefully a secure one, and they have an attachment with their dad. Again, hopefully a secure one. But those two individual attachments are distinct. They're separate. And upon divorce, if you just get rid of one of those attachments, either altogether, like suddenly they don't see that parent at all anymore, or they see them every other weekend, that attachment is going to suffer. They're going to grieve. They're going to grieve. The kids are going to experience the fallout. Always. Kids, that's the point I got to drive home here. Kids form distinct, secure attachments to each parent when they provide responsive caregiving. And the presence of two secure relationships predicts better outcomes across the board for children than just having one secure relationship. Research consistently shows that children with ongoing and substantial time with both parents have better emotional regulation, show lower rates of anxiety and depression, and demonstrate stronger identity development. This holds even when parents are in conflict, provided the child is not directly exposed to abuse. So I want to show you some screenshots from this 2019 study. So this study was looking at separations between the parent, separations between a parent, and it was talking about the psychological harm that comes when you lose a parent completely, or even if you lose a time with a parent at all, when you have a secure attachment with a parent. And the research here backs up decades of research that has already been done that distinguishes that divorce itself is often manageable. Kids are resilient, yes, and they will get through divorce. Divorce itself is often not the problem that causes long-term damage for children. It's the loss of a parent. While divorce is often manageable for kids, the loss of a parent is much less manageable for children. In fact, the loss of a parent upon a separation or a divorce is strongly associated with long-term harm. Children in shared parenting arrangements where they don't have to grieve one parent upon the loss of the family unit tend to feel less abandoned, experience less loyalty conflict, and they're able to maintain a coherent sense of family continuity. It's not this separation that harms children the most. It's the severed relationships. So, longitudinal data from the Danish birth cohort, over 31,000 children. Let me pull up this study. This is a very, very big study. I mean, they had a large sample size. I'll get back to the 2019 one in a second. Here, I'll share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see this? Okay, so right now we're looking at, I'll go to the top. We're looking at mental health in school children in joint physical custody, a longitudinal study. This is a longitudinal study from the Danish National Birth Cohort. It includes over 31,000 children. And this study shows that children in joint physical custody, aka shared parenting, 50-50 type arrangements, had better mental health outcomes than those in sole custody after separation. I'm going to go to the discussion part. So you can read in the discussion part, we found that 11-year-old children with separated parents had more mental health problems than children living with both of their parents together. Mental health also varied between children in different family types after parental separation. Children in joint physical custody had slightly better mental health outcomes compared with children in sole physical custody with no new partner and step family arrangements after parental separation. So that's pretty clear that shared equal parenting, aka 50-50 arrangements, are better for children. Now, this is just one of dozens of studies, by the way, dozens of studies. And while all separated families in this study showed some increase of stress after divorce, because divorce is naturally a stressful event for everyone involved, the increase was smaller for kids in joint custody arrangements. Let me scroll down to the part I want to show you guys. Yeah. So they noticed the limitations of the study, but back to the results section. Okay, so they gave all the kids an SDQ score, an SDQ score. And according to this SDQ score, it's calculated they calculated this based on 11-year and 7-year interviews. The SDQ score, sorry, I'm trying to find the exact definition for it. I think they are statistical. It's a statistical number that shows basically their health after the separation. So the proportion of children with a high total SDQ score at 11 years was 10.2 in the total study population. This figure was 8.9 for children living in a nuclear family, 11.7 for children in joint physical custody, and 17.9 for children without a new parental partner, and 18.2 for children living in sole physical custody. That's huge. That really is huge. So it's showing key comparison. It's showing basically that joint physical custody has the smallest increase of stress and negative outcomes for kids, and that when you have sole custody with a new partner, that has the largest increase of stress and negative outcomes for children. My third argument that I'm going to make for equal shared parenting is that shared parenting reduces power imbalances. This is very important. So when one parent controls the access, children may feel pressure to align with that parent. The other parent, who they don't see very often, or maybe not at all, is often marginalized or erased. Academic reviews describe this as parental gatekeeping. Parental gatekeeping refers to attitudes or behaviors that either facilitate or restrict another parent's access to a relationship with that child. Simply put, this includes limiting contact, communication, or involvement with that child. I would add that it includes convincing the child of certain things so that the child will do the rejecting themselves. Any way to deter that child from going with their other parent. Why does this matter, you guys? Why do you think? Why do you think? Let me know in the comments, in the chat. Why do you think this matters? And I will link all these studies in the description of the video, by the way. Well, I think this matters clearly, for one thing, because when one parent is able to exert restrictive control over the other parent's access to their shared children, the result is a power imbalance. One parent having the power, the other parent has lost the power to their children. You're commodifying your children, by the way, when you do this. Shared parenting is helpful because they put forth plans that prescribe equitable time and responsibilities to each parent in order to help protect against these gatekeeping behaviors and hopefully to safeguard the parent-child bonds. When we talk about 50-50 custody, 50-50 custody and equal share parenting is very important because it not only provides the child with equal time to each of their important attachment figures, but it also reduces the opportunities for coercive control. It protects children from being used as leverage in adult conflicts, and it decreases the risk of psychological manipulation or loyalty binds. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This is not a parental rights issue. This is a children's rights issue. Maybe even a child protection issue. but it's not a parental rights issue. I'll just talk about my own story for a minute here. My dad was given every other weekend and every Wednesday night. I rarely went with him, even during those times. But if my parents had come to an agreement of a shared equal custody 50-50 plan, I believe that there would have been a much greater chance that my dad would have been able to pick up on the fact that I was going through psychological abuse without even having enough time to see me, interact with me, notice the changes occurring in me, although he did, even from afar. But if we had spent 50-50 of the time together, he would have noticed all of the symptoms that were clearly symptoms of psychological abuse, of being abused. My fourth reason for why equal shared parenting is absolutely necessary, if you have two, I have to do this disclaimer throughout the video, or I'm just going to get so many comments. As long as you have two healthy and fit parents, no neglect or maltreatment. The fourth reason is that children do better academically and socially. This is backed up by tons of studies. Studies consistently show that children in shared parenting situations perform better in school, but they also have stronger peer relationships. They have stronger relationships with their friends, stronger social networks, and they also show fewer behavioral problems. I have to mention as well that these outcomes, they hold across income levels and across different family structures. Fifth reason, equal shared parenting protects children from role reversal and parentification. Now, you might be wondering, oh, okay, explain that one to me, Maddie. I don't quite see how you got from A to B. Well, let me explain it to you, please. So when one parent becomes that child's sole emotional anchor in life, children may feel responsible for that parent's well-being, especially if that parent is not dating, is not remarried, or is not developing their own social life. They're not getting their needs met by other people in that way. So children just develop this responsibility for that parent's well-being. This often creates parentification, which is a known form of psychological harm. This is when a child feels responsible for taking care of their parents' emotional needs. This was me from the ages 7 until 28. I was always taking care of my parents' needs, almost like I was their therapist sometimes, or I was their friend sometimes, making them feel better, helping them through situations, whatever it might have been. It makes it so that you're constantly looking around, you're hypervigilant, waiting for their next emotional explosion and trying to walk them off the ledge, so to speak. You're always placing their emotional state above your own. It ends up what happening is that you, I can't talk. What ends up happening is that you neglect your own needs and you put your parent first. You may neglect your own friendships, your own romantic relationships. You neglect yourself because you're always putting them first. Shared parenting, in contrast, spreads that emotional load. So for at least 50% of the time, that child can be a child. And it prevents children from becoming emotional caretakers. The bottom line is that when you have a 50-50 custody agreement, that child, if they are being abused in any way by one of their parents, if they're spending the other half of their time with their healthy, safe parent, that gives that healthy, safe parent 50% of their time to notice that the child has changed, the child is, having these disturbing symptoms, the child is not right. Something is going on with their other parent. They can pick up on it. Also, it allows that child, because I know psychological abuse is really difficult to prove in the court of law, it allows a child who is being psychologically abused 50% of the time to have a 50% of their time where they have a reprieve. They don't have to be going through this harm. At least they have a moment to gasp and breathe. At least they have one parent who can allow them to still have their childhood. 6. This is a little bit controversial, but I do stand by this point. Conflict is not a valid reason to remove a parent. High conflict is often cited as a reason to limit contact with one parent. Now, I'm not talking about abuse or neglect when I say conflict. I want to make that really clear. However, removing a parent does not reduce conflict for the child if the conflict is between the two parents. So the logic is, oh my gosh, we're butting heads so much. We can't even be in the same room together. We hate each other so much. We have such a high conflict divorce. It would be better for us to just have the child with one of us so we can reduce the conflict they have to go through. And studies show this is not true. Removing a parent does not reduce conflict for the child. Actually, what happens is if you remove a parent in that scenario, it increases stress for the child. It increases insecurity for the child. What helps children when they have parents who are high conflict situations is predictable routines, stable relationships with both parents, and to limit adult gatekeeping. So the bottom line here is that in cases where you have shared contact and conflict between the parents is present, the interference happens only when children are made to be part of the conflict, when children are put in the middle, asked to relay messages, or they are made to take sides. But if the conflict is happening between the parents and children may see the conflict, but they're not dragged into the conflict themselves, they will still do better with shared parenting. 7. This is the 7th reason. I have 8 reasons for shared parenting, and then I'm going to get into the reasons against shared parenting and explain why I think they're wrong. This is the 7th, though. So the 7th is that children need both parental perspectives. There is something very unique that each parent will offer to the child. And if you exclude one parent from the child's life, they're going to be missing out on a lot. Not just about their own identity and their family history, but a lot of life lessons and characteristics that they could inherit. Healthy development involves exposure to different personalities, different values, different problem-solving skills. And they need to learn flexibility, empathy, how to take different perspectives other than your own. Even imperfect parents contribute something essential to a child's growth. For example, having 2 regular parental figures with 2 very different, distinct personalities will actually help children learn how to navigate and adapt to different social expectations, which, by the way, is linked to better executive functioning later in life. The essential point is that homogeneous interaction with one parent all the time, you're having the same conversations, the same fights, the same back and forth. These patterns limit opportunities for children to learn flexibility, perspective taking. Having 2 parents with multiple points of view and different characteristics, outlooks on life, exposes children and expands their developmental capacities. To put it simply, each parent offers distinct scaffolding for growth. Of course, no parent is perfect, but imperfections still teach. And sometimes when you make mistakes as a parent, if you can own up to those mistakes, apologize for those mistakes, and do better, that can be one of the most important skills to teach your child. So rather seeing flawed parenting as purely harmful, they made this mistake, they should not be allowed to see the kids anymore. Developmental science views parental imperfection as a ripe learning environment. Children can learn boundaries, conflict resolution, how to advocate for themselves. This means that removing one parent due to perceived imperfection actually can reduce developmental learning opportunities that are available for that child. And let me see if I have this stat up here. I thought I had it, but I will put, by the way, all these sources I'm talking about, I will include. But this comes from Ainsworth, Bandura, Lamb. This is pretty foundational stuff. Now, my 8th reason for equal shared parenting is 50-50 custody aligns with children's rights. By the way, if you are also a proponent of equal shared parenting or 50-50 custody, please like the video. I mean, I know this is not the most click-worthy topic. I know it's not, super controversial or like trending in YouTube right now, but maybe if enough people like the video and comment and interact with the video, share the video, maybe we can get YouTube to know that this matters, because this does matter. From a children's rights framework, children have a right to maintain meaningful relationships with both parents. Full stop. Period. That's just the facts. Adults do not have a right to erase the child's other attachment figure. Shared parenting prioritizes the child's long-term well-being over adult grievances. Once again, oh my gosh, I just hate making these clarifications, but I have to, because I can already hear people in the comments saying, but what if they're abusive? Well, what if they're neglectful? Listen, shared parenting is not appropriate when there is substantiated physical, sexual, or severe psychological abuse, or if a parent poses a demonstrable safety risk to the child. Okay, so protecting children always comes first. Always, always, always. But allegations alone should never be used to sever a parent-child bond without evidence. Never, ever, 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 ever. Because the harm of a wrongful separation is profound and long-lasting. Let me go back to some of the research I had earlier. Let me see if it was this one. No, not that one. There was a 2019 research study, and I'll put it in the link in the description of the video. And it talked about how kids deal with separation from their parental attachment figures. And it mentions here, it mentions there was a unique association between multiple separations and losses and trauma-related symptoms, reactive attachment symptoms, functional impairment, and psychiatric disorders, even after accounting for the effects of violence. It keeps going, and I will show you, but the bottom line is that to separate a child from their attachment figure, even for a week, even for a month, does incredible harm to them, incredible harm, especially if they are removed from the child's life again and again and again and again. The expounded removal, horrible for kids. So this study also says psychiatric disorders were significantly more common in children with multiple separations or losses than other children. Young children with multiple separations or losses were 2.5 times more likely than any other children to have at least one psychiatric disorder, and more than 3 times more likely to have a disruptive behavior disorder, independent of the effects of important contextual risks, such as poverty, harsh parenting, and violence exposure. It says It says here, these diagnostic patterns suggest that multiple separations and losses may place children at risk for a constellation of problems arising from emotional and behavioral dysregulation. So sad. And so that's why it is very important to not use allegations alone for severing a parent-child bond without evidence, because anyone can make a false allegation. My mom made a false allegation against my dad and took me away from him for 60 days. And that's how the mind control completely solidified. And then I mourned my dad at 9 years old like he had died. Incredible, painful experience that lasted 20 years from that point on. So false allegations are really dangerous because the more time that the child is removed from either of their attachment figures, the more at risk they are for those harmful effects I just mentioned. Now, let's get into the arguments against shared parenting. And I'm going to talk about why I disagree with them. By the way, I see the comments in the chat. Thank you guys for being here. I will address the comments and the question at the end of the video. So the first argument I hear for equal shared parenting seems to be that children need one primary parent for stability. That's not true. That's actually not true at all. Research shows that children form multiple attachments, usually one with each parent. And like I said at my first point for shared parenting, these bonds are not interchangeable. You guys, a child has a unique, special attachment to their mother and a unique special attachment to their father. Or if it's a homosexual couple, mother and mother, father and father, whatever it may be. But no matter the family structure, these bonds are not interchangeable. Losing meaningful access to one parent is experienced by that child as a developmental loss. This is not a neutral change. Having one primary parent and one parent they see as like visiting, like a visitor. This is a profound grief the child must go through, a grieving process. If they lose substantial time with a loving parent, children will suffer. They will grieve. They will start to internalize this as with negative beliefs about themselves. I'm not good enough for my parent to see me more. My parent must not love me enough to not see me more. And if you need the source on this, look at Ainsworth's work in her study from 1978. I will put all of the references in the video description. The second most common argument I hear, and let me know in the chat if you hear any arguments come up a lot against shared parenting. I'd be interested to hear those. But the second most common argument that I hear is that shared parenting causes conflict and stress for the child. I hear something like, I would hate to be a suitcase kid living out of my suitcase, never having my own bed and always having to switch houses and switch rooms. Well, studies show that removing a parent in a high conflict situation does not reduce conflict for the child. It often increases stress, insecurity, and loyalty conflicts. Children benefit more from predictable routines and continued relationships with both parents, even amid conflict. And I'm sorry, but if you're one of these parents arguing that you don't want your child to be a suitcase child, or you want them to have their own bedroom, you should have thought about that before you got divorced. Sometimes difficult life experiences produce difficult effects. And that's why divorce is so harmful for children, because it's not fun to be a suitcase child. It's not fun to have two separate bedrooms and go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. It's not fun to have to learn two different sets of rules at your parents' house, but guess what? That's reality. That's just reality. It's like getting a dog. Honestly, it's like getting a dog and then complaining that you have to take it for walks. What did you expect? Dogs need exercise. And so when you get a divorce and then you complain about your child having to have two bedrooms, two sets of rules, and a lifestyle that they're going back and forth, like, what did you expect? Honestly, what did you expect? We have to deal with the results of our decisions. We have to face the consequences. We have to be adults here and face the consequences. Third argument I hear a lot is that one parent needs to control the child to avoid manipulation. This is a weak argument. I don't like this argument at all. Listen, shared parenting reduces the power imbalances, like I talked about earlier. It prevents one parent from becoming a gatekeeper, and it protects children from being used as leverage, being used as a regulatory object for that parent's emotions. This is actually a child protection issue, not a parental rights issue. The fourth common argument I hear is that children are too young to split time equally. Now, this might come from the tender years doctrine. I'm not really sure. I could make a video on that. Let me know if you guys think I should make a video exploring the tender years doctrine, which was basically, I think, meant to put in place saying that infants need their mothers for a specific amount of time more than their fathers. I could do a whole video on that. But let's talk about this first. Children are too young to split time equally. First, evidence shows that even infants can form secure attachments to both parents. I have a 10-month-old baby right now. I've had 3 babies. My babies have very unique and special bonds with my husband and with me. For instance, my 10-month-old baby girl right now, it's really cute actually. She has her own little games she plays with daddy and routines she does with daddy. She likes to grab his beard. She thinks it's really funny when he takes her baba and pretends to put it in his mouth. He does it every night, and so it's predictable. She has these little routines with him. She knows what to expect with him. And same with me. You know, she knows that she gets her food from mama. She's happy, and she knows she gets her food from mama. We play certain games together that she knows she plays with mama. I mean, evidence shows this. Yes, the infants can form secure attachments to both parents, but so does life experience. If you have kids, you know that your infant is certainly capable of distinguishing between their mother and their father and having relationships with both. It's intuitive. And more time with both parents promotes emotional security, emotional regulation, and resilience. 3 things that are vital for children to develop. Is it inconsistent for kids to have to go back and forth from one parent's house to another? Sure. Yes. But that's simply a ramification of the parents choosing to divorce. And that is also why I think it's so crucial to have a strong marriage, to marry the right person to start with, and to cultivate a strong, loving marriage. The 5th argument I hear often, this is the last one I'm going to cover, unless you guys have some more in the comments, is that shared parenting is unnecessary if one parent is better. Give me a break. Who defines better anyway? This is a very weak argument. The arguments get weaker as we go, right? Even imperfect parents provide unique developmental contributions, different perspectives, different cultures, maybe different histories, different problem-solving styles, and different values. Removing a parent deprives children of opportunities to develop flexibility, like I mentioned earlier, empathy, and the ability to take a different perspective than their own, which is really important skill to be able to have in life. Now, I'm curious to hear what you guys think about all of this. Thank you, Brian. I'm going to get into the comments now. Brian says 50-50 allows shared expenses, time, trips, fun, and potential lifetime of memories. Oh, yeah. Okay. So that's another point. Thank you for bringing that up. When my husband is out of town for work, even if he's only out of town for, say, 3 days, 2 nights, I get a little preview into the single mom experience. It is hard. Okay. I'm up from 6 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. with one or more of the kids the entire day. I don't get a second to myself. I'm exhausted. I hardly have time to eat. It is so physically, mentally draining. I actually called my husband one time. He's gone. I'm like, I don't understand why some people choose to be single parents when they could rely on their ex for 50-50 custody. I don't understand it. Wouldn't you want the break? Wouldn't you want the break if not only to just clean your house, to replenish yourself, to be the best parent you can be? That's just my opinion, but I also have a very involved, very helpful husband. Authentic E says if it's really about what's best for kids, parents in non-abusive marriages would honor their commitments and not divorce. That's a whole other can of worms that I can't open today. I hear what you're saying, though. Again, I'll put all the studies in the description of the video. I haven't done it yet, and I will do it once this live stream ends. Rich B says child protection generally sides with the mother since they are all women and left-wing ideologically. It seems to be the case. It does. It seems to be the case. And not all 50 states have an equal shared parenting presumption. Like, I think that upon divorce, the presumption needs to be equal shared parenting, 50-50 custody. Thank you. Yes, please like the video, help me get it in the algorithm, tell YouTube that this matters. Everybody needs to be aware of 50-50 custody, equal shared parenting, how important it is, and why it is so important. Okay, so I've got someone disagreeing in the chat. So if you disagree, let me know why. If you disagree with equal shared parenting, I really am open-minded. I'm curious to hear why. What are the issues with it? Someone says, gotta get that child support money. I don't know if you guys know this, but with child support, if you withhold your child from the other parent, you will get more child support. That needs to stop. That's actually encouraging parents to withhold their children. That's encouraging custodial interference and psychological abuse. So every time I didn't go with my dad, I guess my mom got even more child support. Great. Google user says, can you do a deep dive study exposing the court system, how they hate marriage, love the money, and political agenda they win from the way they mishandle cases? It is not real justice. It is criminal violence. Yeah, I would stay out of the family court system if you can. I don't know if that's really something that I am interested in doing. I imagine some other people must have already done this. I mean, it can't be that nobody on the internet has taken this on. I think it's more a matter of how to fix it. Annulment proof says the innocent spouse should get everything and the guilty spouse should get nothing. Well, hardly ever do I think that divorces are that black and white. I really do think that most of the time there's more nuance than that. Now, if you are dealing with a pathological person, yeah, it could be more black and white like that. But the problem with that is that they are often 2 steps ahead of you, right? And they know maybe instinctively, or they've even been trained or taught by whoever it may be, a lawyer or a group, a coach, who knows, the steps to take to paint themselves in the best light and to paint their ex in the worst light in the eyes of the court to get any type of leverage over them. And that way they could get more child support, a better settlement, perhaps full custody if that's what they're after. Thank you guys for your thoughts in the chat. It's always helpful and interesting to me to hear everybody's opinion. So I think the bottom line, no, let me rephrase that. I know that this is the bottom line. Children do best when they are allowed to love both parents freely, by the way, without fear, pressure, or loss. Kids will do best when they can preserve their attachments with both parents after a separation or a divorce. And equal shared parenting does just that. It preserves those attachments, reduces psychological harm, and it limits coercive control. This all aligns with the available research, by the way, on what is best for kids in this situation. It is not about parental rights. It's not about splitting time equally for the parents. No, it is about protecting the relationships a child has with both individual parent and safeguarding a child's mental, emotional, and physical health. And if you've taken away nothing from this video, but that, I hope that that is your number one takeaway. Thank you, everybody for being here, and I will see you next time.